want to free up additional land for the industrial cultivation of soybeans and for extensive cattle pastures for meat consumption. But the preservation of the Amazon rainforest is a topic for humankind, said spokesman Steffen Seibert on behalf of the German government. It has significance for all and not only for the region of South America. Chancellor Angela Merkel called the rainforest a global question and that the lungs of the earth are affected. And she said that talks with Brazil about reforestation should begin as soon as the fires are extinguished. Some European states announced that they would not ratify the Mercosur trade agreement already negotiated with South America as long as the existence of rainforests was not secured. And Pope Francis called on all Catholics to pray for the rainforest.
The Amazon forest is of inestimable importance for the entire world climate and for the biodiversity of the planet. These lungs of the earth, as it is also called, are on fire, burning countless animals. This means unspeakable suffering for the animals, the trees, for all living beings who perish miserably, which is mostly ignored in the news. In addition, the indigenous people of the forest, the Indians, are driven out or even murdered at the instigation of land speculators. The countless fires can hardly be extinguished, and the forest can hardly be reforested later in its original biodiversity. The rainforest is already weakened by the climate change. Any further damage can cause the entire ecosystem to collapse, turning it into a step, with incalculable dire consequences for the world's climate, which in turn means suffering for countless people, animals, and plants, a dark cortege of horror that will affect more and more countries and regions. But if the politicians of the European states are only now expressing their concern and discovering their alleged attachment to the Amazon, where were they before? Even if the forest fires in the Amazon have now reached a new tragic climax, the forest has been in the process of being destroyed there for decades, also in the neighboring countries of Brazil, such as Bolivia and Paraguay. And for a long time it has also been known what the main engine of destruction is, the unrestrained consumption of meat, and the big businesses that can be transacted with it. The suffering of animals often hanging in slaughterhouses still alive instead open do not appear in the usual news. This mass animal husbandry is also a major factor in the climate catastrophe. In 2018, the European Union imported 120,000 tons of beef from Brazil, and just for the animal feed for fattening the animals in the German livestock barns, an area the size of the federal state of Hesse is needed outside Germany. And a large part of this area lies on Brazil's soya plantations, for which valuable rainforests had previously been destroyed.
When several European national leaders now complain about the deforestation of the rainforest, the German Association for the Environment and Nature Conservation calls this crocodile tears. The German daily newspaper Taz speaks of hypocrisy. After all, for decades they, the state leaders, have done nothing about the cruel mass livestock farming in European barns. They even continue to support it with billions in subsidies of European agricultural policy at the expense of all taxpayers. Even the construction of huge new slaughterhouses was subsidized with German taxpayers' money. For decades, the politicians responsible have allowed millions of animals to be cruelly tortured, groundwater, rivers and air to be poisoned with the excrement of the suffering animals, and fields to be poisoned by a deluge of pesticides. And when some politicians now do not want to sign the Mercosur agreement, why did they even negotiate it when it was clear that this trade agreement would result in the destruction of further rainforest areas in advance? The agreement was about further boosting the export of meat and genetically modified soya from South America to Europe. Numerous nature conservation organizations had expressly warned against this. But all of them sniffed and sniff only the big business. All of them are solely concerned with profit and power at the expense of nature and animals. And hasn't every consumer who eats meat set the rainforest on fire for decades?
Where does this indifference to the infinite suffering of nature and animals actually come from? From the onset, the Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro has publicly stated that the Amazon forest is merely a kind of factory site for industrial agriculture and cattle breeding, from which profits should be made. Most of his voters come from the evangelical Protestant denominational camp, and from this religious point of view, it is not so bad if the planet Earth is destroyed, because Jesus, or what they think he is, will one day come back and miraculously restore everything. This, of course, has nothing to do with the teaching of peace of Jesus, the Christ, the co-regent of the kingdom of God, because in his Sermon on the Mount, he also taught respect for nature and the animals, which, like all ensouled human beings, are creatures of God and are loved by him. But a similar contempt for nature as with so-called evangelicals can also be found in other religions, for instance, among Lutherans or Catholics. In their reference books, the exploitation of nature and animals by human beings is expressly approved. Pope Francis, for example, who now asks people to pray for the rainforest, did not mention one single time meat consumption. Its painful prehistory and its terrible consequences for nature in his so-called environmental encyclical, which was staged with very effective publicity. God, our eternal Father, did not found a religion. He is present with His Spirit in all being. It is again and again His adversaries who, since time immemorial, have carried humankind's war against its fellow human beings as well as against nature and animals into all religions and have repeatedly rekindled it. With this we take our leave of you. Goodbye and greetings in God.